Long ago and far away, in enchanted lands across the seas, lived kings and queens, princes and princesses, good fairies and wicked witches, ferocious giants and gentle dwarfs. Their adventures and stories have been told for hundreds of years. Open the pages and listen to the words, and you too can join the magical world of Once Upon a Time.
The Enchanted Princess. Once upon a time, there was a city full of towers and battlements that seemed to stretch as far as the sky. And in this ancient and beautiful city, there lived a leather craftsman called Marcus. He made bags and belts, and would go from house to house throughout the city shouting, "Who'll buy my wares?" Many of the citizens would say they didn't need anything, but the truth was that they'd fallen on hard times and were too proud to admit it. Marcus had 2 sons called Henry and John, and because nobody would buy his wares, he could hardly afford any food or clothing for them. They both realized that their father was very poor, but each of them dealt with the situation in a very different way. Henry was his father's favorite, but he was a very miserable boy who did nothing but moan about the family's fate, while gentle John accepted their fate with a smile on his face and was always happy. One evening, after another day trudging from house to house with his wares, Marcus sat down on a bench in front of an inn. "Ooh, I'm absolutely exhausted," he sighed. The poor man hadn't sold one single thing, and he'd walked so far that he'd worn out his wooden clogs. And when he looked in his purse, it was completely empty, so he couldn't even afford a jug of ale. While he was catching his breath, he overheard an interesting conversation going on between 2 men. "The King of Verania has offered an amazing reward to the person who frees his daughter, Princess Esmeralda," said one of the men. "Why, she in prison?" said the other. "No, she's held under a spell in the castle of a wicked sorcerer," was the reply. "And whoever accepts the challenge must complete 3 difficult tasks. Oh, it would take the bravest of men to complete the tasks. But if he can, the princess will be freed and he will win the sorcerer's fortune." Marcus couldn't believe his ears when he heard this. It seemed the perfect opportunity for him to get rid of his debts. So he raced home to tell Henry to take up the challenge. "But how can I do these brave deeds if I don't even have a horse or a sword?" moaned Henry. "Don't worry, I'll buy them for you," said Marcus. "I have some savings left." So Marcus went to market to buy his favourite son a horse and a sword, and he proudly waved goodbye to him as he set off to attempt the challenge.
"Goodbye, Henry. Good luck." "I don't need luck."
Henry was a fast, aggressive horseman, and in no time at all, he reached the forest that surrounded the sorcerer's castle. As he galloped through the forest, he cut down a beehive with his sword and left the bees homeless. Then he deliberately rode over an anthill, completely destroying it. And as if he hadn't done enough damage, Henry frightened a group of ducks that were sitting peacefully at the edge of a pond. He killed 10 ducks for the sheer thrill of it. Henry galloped on through the forest. He was so arrogant that he didn't even stop to think about the misery he had caused to all the little creatures. Eventually, he came to the castle where Esmeralda was held. Henry jumped down from his horse and knocked at the castle door in an impatient and violent manner. The sorcerer's assistant shouted out from a balcony above, "Come in and have a rest. You have 3 difficult tasks ahead of you." So Henry entered the castle, but he was too nervous to sleep. All night long he tossed and turned in his bed. That night seemed like the longest night of his life. "Oh, how I wish morning would come so that I could get on with the tasks," he moaned. Finally, the castle bell struck 9. On the 9th strike, the sorcerer's assistant appeared again. "Follow me," she said. "It is time for your first challenge." So Henry followed her into the next meadow and watched her scatter a bucket full of seeds all over the grass. "Now," said the sorcerer's assistant, "you must pick up all these seeds and put them back in the bucket. You have exactly 1 hour to do this." "I've got to pick up all these seeds in 1 hour?" Henry said. "That's impossible. This must be a joke." But the woman didn't listen to his complaints and left without replying to his questions. "How could anyone expect me to pick up all those tiny seeds without breaking my back? That woman must be mad," muttered Henry. Precisely 1 hour later, the sorcerer's assistant appeared again. "You haven't even attempted the task," she said. Then she took 12 keys from her apron pocket and threw them into the moat. "You have exactly 1 hour to retrieve the keys," she said. Again, Henry complained. "I've had just about enough of this nonsense," he moaned. "Come on, stop wasting my time and tell me when the real challenges are going to start." But the sorcerer's assistant had already disappeared. One hour later she came back, and although he hadn't attempted the second task, she gave him one last chance. "To do the final task," she said, "you must follow me into the castle. But this challenge is a very dangerous one, and if you fail, you will pay with your life. There's still time to change your mind. Are you sure you're prepared to go through with this?" Henry was furious at this suggestion. "Give up the challenge?" he shouted. "I would never give up the challenge. I'm going with you into the castle, and whatever I have to do, I will do it. So tell me what the task is." The sorcerer's assistant took him to a room where there were 3 veiled figures. Then she told him, "Now you must decide which of these 3 figures is the princess." "I've never heard such a ridiculous challenge. I suppose you're going to tell me I have exactly 1 hour to think about it. Well, I'm not going to mess about. I'm going to choose right now. I think the princess is the one on the right." No sooner had he pointed at the veiled figure he had chosen than it turned into a dragon that roared and breathed fire at him. "Oh no! I made the wrong choice!" sobbed Henry. And the heartbroken Princess Esmeralda, who was the figure in the middle, could only watch the terrible scene that followed. Henry cried out, "Please take pity on me. I know I made a mess of all the tasks, and I have no claim on the princess or the sorcerer's fortune, but surely I don't deserve to die for this." But Henry was wasting his time. Sorcerers don't listen to excuses. They set their tasks and expect them to be done. So, on the sorcerer's command,
Dragon, take him.
the dragon then took the terrified young man in its teeth and threw him over the balcony. That was the end of poor old Henry. Marcus didn't know about Henry's fate, and for 1 whole year he waited anxiously for his return.
It's time to turn over to side 2.